Jason, you spoke this morning about the challenges facing NHS Scotland. What do you think the major challenges facing the health service are?
So I think it's changed. I think it's different. I think we continue to have a challenge around technical care, making the care, the delivery better. But the next step, I think, is about values and culture. And that's what Derek and I talked about this morning in our opening address, where we talked about moving from getting the infections down, getting the beds at the right angle, towards making the care, the human elements of that care better. I think that's a much, much more difficult conversation about values, about co-production, about the assets of the communities in which we're working, to try and get everybody to work around that same set of values to make it better.
What does co-production mean?
Co-production to me is designing the thing with the service and the service users. So co-production around your own individual health might be a conversation about physical activity. It might be your responsibilities and my responsibilities as the healthcare worker in what's our version of making you healthier. But I can't do that as the healthcare worker. That has to be about you. Then it gets more difficult. So what does co-production of the service mean? What does it mean for a community, a town, a village, a school to co-produce the healthcare delivery for them? Because in some places that will be about community nursing, some places it will be about acute care, other places it will be about psychiatry. So what does the community, including the healthcare community, do around producing that health and healthcare for that society?
How will you know if the culture is changing?
So that's a really good question. So just now we know things like if mortality is falling, if infection rates are falling. So I think they speak, these things are not separate. They speak to something of the culture and something of the values of the system. So if mortality went up, I'd be worried about the culture as well as worried about the technical care. But increasingly I'd like for people to be able to articulate to me what the NHS Scotland way is. The analogy I often use is with hotel companies, big hotel companies, where there is a way, there's a Hilton way, a Marriott way. Sounds a little twee, but what is the NHS Scotland way? Well, I think it's about being person-centred, it's about being world-leading, it's about being ambitious. So how do we get that culture around all the workers, not just the workers, but the patients and the families who are in our system as well?
You spoke this morning about doors. Why are they significant?
The interesting thing is that I think as I go round the healthcare system, doors have become representative of culture to me. It's just a really simple illustration of what the cultures are. So the doors within acute hospitals speak to the values that are on the other side of those doors. So some of the doors I showed were maybe not as positive as they could have been. Some of them were about restriction, about visiting times, about one of them was, this is a maternity unit, no men can get in here. It didn't quite say that, but there was a little sign of a man with a score through him as if he's not allowed in. Other ones about when the doors are locked, when the doors are opened. And then to contrast that, I then showed a door that was an intensive care unit in Forth Valley that said, welcome to intensive care, please come in. You're welcome here. That's a completely different culture for patients and families who are coming to visit institutions. And we sometimes forget because we're there all the time. And we walk past these doors and signs and we don't recognise the message they're giving out to the people who are visiting. And I think doors, although a tiny piece of our system, are some kind of representative of what the culture is like.
What are your personal values?
We discussed this morning in the talk 4 words that we limited ourselves to 4 words. And mine were person-centred, 2 words, but hyphenated, so I'm allowed that. Passionate, driving that change. Aspiring, because I want Scotland to be the best in the world. And restless. And restless, I think, is the most interesting for me because Derek described it perhaps when we were planning the talk as annoying, which didn't seem like a good value. But restless is about that, just that desire to get better at what we do, to be disruptively innovative in everything that we do. And the whole theme of the conference is about innovation and change and quality within that. So my values were those, particularly around the restlessness to be world achieving.